I told my daughter-in-law I was giving her and my son full control of my restaurant empire, signed everything over, handed them the keys to 12 locations across Texas. What they didn't know was that I'd been watching them for months. I walked into their flagship restaurant wearing clothes from Goodwill, sat down at a table, and waited. My daughter-in-law saw me, laughed, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Security, remove this homeless woman. She's scaring away my customers." My own son stood behind her and did nothing. That was all I needed to see. I made one phone call. 15 minutes later, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the entrance, and both of them turned white as ghosts. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Where are you listening from right now? Drop your location in the comments. One more thing, this story includes some creative elements to illustrate important life lessons. While certain details may be dramatized, the message about respect, family values, and karma is absolutely real. Let me tell you about the night my own daughter-in-law called me homeless trash and had no idea she was talking to the woman who owned every brick of the building she was standing in. My name is Evelyn Thornton, and I'm 63 years old. To most people in the restaurant industry in Texas, I'm the founder of Thornton's Table, a chain of 12 upscale Southern comfort restaurants stretching from Houston to Dallas to San Antonio. The kind of name that gets you the best table at any establishment and makes bankers return your calls within the hour. But that Wednesday evening in late September, I wasn't Evelyn Thornton, restaurant mogul. I was just another tired-looking older woman in faded jeans, a plain flannel shirt from the thrift store, and worn sneakers that had seen better days. My silver hair, usually styled perfectly, was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no jewelry, no makeup, no designer handbag. I looked like exactly what my daughter-in-law would later call me, a nobody. That was exactly what I intended. 6 months earlier, I'd announced to my family that I was stepping back from the business. My husband Walter had passed away 4 years ago, and I told everyone I was tired, ready to enjoy my golden years, maybe travel to see the grandchildren I'd been too busy to visit. My son, Derek, and his wife, Vanessa, had practically glowed with excitement when I named them co-managers of our flagship location in Austin, the crown jewel of our chain. They thought I was spending my days gardening and watching cooking shows. They had no idea I'd hired a private investigator and had been conducting what I called my character audit, testing them, watching to see if the values Walter and I had built this company on still meant anything to the people who would inherit it. Walter and I started with nothing. Literally nothing. In 1985, we opened a tiny diner in a strip mall outside Houston with $3,000 we'd scraped together from odd jobs and a small loan from Walter's aunt. We worked 18-hour days. I cooked, he served, we cleaned together at midnight and opened again at 6 in the morning. For years, we couldn't afford to hire help. For years, we ate our own food for every meal because we couldn't afford groceries. But we treated every single customer like family. Every single one. Walter used to say, "Evelyn, people forget what they ate, but they never forget how you made them feel." That philosophy built an empire. 12 restaurants, 300 employees, annual revenue that would make your head spin. And when Walter died of a sudden heart attack at 59, I thought my world had ended. But I kept going. For him, for everything we'd built together. I tried to teach Derek those same values. When he was young, he'd help bus tables on weekends, and I'd tell him stories about the early days, about treating people with dignity, regardless of how much money they had in their pockets. He'd nod and smile and say he understood. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Maybe it was Vanessa's influence. Maybe it was the money he'd grown up around. Money he'd never had to earn himself. Maybe I'd failed him somehow. That's what I needed to find out. The Austin flagship was housed in a beautiful, restored Victorian building on Congress Avenue, right in the heart of downtown. Exposed brick walls, original hardwood floors, crystal chandeliers that Walter had picked out himself from an antique dealer in New Orleans. The wait for a table on weekends could stretch to 2 hours. Food critics called it a love letter to Southern cuisine. I called it my husband's legacy. I pushed open the heavy wooden door and stepped inside. The hostess stand was empty, which was the first red flag. In my restaurants, someone should always be there to greet guests within 30 seconds of arrival. Always. I stood there for almost 2 full minutes before a young woman in a black dress finally appeared, looking annoyed at the interruption to whatever she'd been doing on her phone. She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on my worn sneakers, my thrift store flannel. Her lip curled slightly. "Can I help you?" No smile. No warmth. No welcome to Thornton's table. "I'd like a table for one, please." She glanced at her reservation book, though I knew for a fact it was only 6 o'clock on a Wednesday. The restaurant wasn't even half full. "We're completely booked tonight. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable somewhere else." The words hit me like a slap. More comfortable somewhere else. Because of how I was dressed. Because she'd looked at my clothes and decided I didn't belong in my own restaurant. "Are you sure?" I kept my voice calm, polite. "I don't mind waiting." "Ma'am." Her tone sharpened. I said we're full. There's a McDonald's 2 blocks down if you're looking for something more in your price range. My heart cracked a little, but I didn't show it. Instead, I simply nodded and turned away, pretending to leave. But I didn't leave. I walked to the small waiting area near the window and sat down on one of the leather benches, watching the dining room, observing everything. The tables I could see were maybe 40% occupied. Servers stood in clusters chatting instead of checking on guests. A water glass sat empty at table 12 for at least 10 minutes before anyone noticed. The bread basket at table 7 had clearly been sitting out too long, the rolls looking dry and sad. Walter would have been devastated. And then I saw her. Vanessa emerged from the kitchen like she owned the world, which I suppose she thought she did. She was wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most of our servers made in a month. Her blonde hair was blown out to perfection, her makeup flawless. She was holding her phone in one hand, angled up toward her face, clearly recording. "Hey everyone, it's your girl Vanessa coming to you live from Thornton's Table, Austin. Your favorite restaurant boss giving you a behind-the-scenes look at how we run this empire." She laughed, a practiced, artificial sound. Subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell because this content is exclusive. My stomach turned. She was filming content for social media during business hours, while guests sat with empty water glasses, while the hostess turned away customers based on their appearance, while everything Walter and I had built crumbled under her supervision. I watched her parade through the dining room, stopping to pose with her phone, interrupting servers to demand they film her from better angles. At one point, she made a busboy move, a floral arrangement 3 times because it wasn't aesthetic enough for her shot. And then her eyes landed on me. I saw the recognition flicker across her face. Not recognition of who I was, but recognition of what I appeared to be. An older woman in cheap clothes sitting in the waiting area of her upscale restaurant. She walked toward me, still holding her phone, still recording. "Excuse me." Her voice was sugar-sweet, but her eyes were cold. "Can I help you with something? I'm just waiting for a table." "Oh." She laughed that fake laugh again, glancing at her phone, at her audience. "I don't think so." "Brianna." She snapped her fingers at the hostess. "Didn't you already tell this woman we're full?" "I did, Mrs. Thornton." She wouldn't leave. Vanessa's smile tightened. She turned back to her phone, to the thousands of followers who were apparently watching this unfold. "See, everyone, this is what we deal with in the restaurant business. Some people just don't understand boundaries. Some people don't understand that places like this have standards." She said the word standards while looking directly at my flannel shirt. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, giving her one last chance. "I just wanted a nice meal. I used to come here with my husband years ago." "That's sweet." Her voice dripped with condescension. "But things have changed. This isn't the kind of place for," she gestured vaguely at my clothes, "people like you anymore. We have a reputation to maintain." The comments on her live stream were probably scrolling by with fire emojis and laughing faces. I couldn't see them, but I could imagine. I'd become content. A joke for strangers to consume. "I understand," I said, standing slowly. "I'll go." But I didn't move fast enough for her. "Security!" She called out without looking away from her phone. "Can we get someone to escort this woman out? She's making our guests uncomfortable." A large man in a black suit appeared. Marcus, according to his name tag. I'd never seen him before, which meant he was a new hire, someone who'd come on after I'd stepped back from daily operations. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me." "Of course." I gathered my purse, my hands trembling slightly. Not from fear, from something else. Something that felt like my heart breaking into pieces. And that's when Derek appeared. My son. My only child. The baby I'd rocked to sleep in the tiny apartment above our first diner. The boy who used to sit on the counter and watch me cook, who would tell me I made the best pancakes in the whole world. The man who'd stood beside me at his father's funeral and promised to make him proud. He walked up behind his wife, put his hand on her shoulder, and looked at me with the same cold assessment she had. No recognition. No spark of the boy I'd raised. "What's going on?" "Just some vagrant who wandered in, babe. Vanessa didn't even lower her phone. Security's handling it." Derek looked at me. Looked right at me. I waited for something. Anything. A flicker of doubt. A moment of hesitation. Some sign that my son still existed somewhere inside this stranger. "Good," he said. "We can't have people like this driving away our actual customers." The words hit me harder than anything Vanessa had said. People like this. His mother. The woman who had sacrificed everything to build what he was now so carelessly destroying. Marcus took my arm. Not roughly, but firmly. "Come on, ma'am. Time to go." I let him lead me toward the door. My legs felt numb. My chest felt hollow. Through the glass windows, I could see the evening sun setting over Austin, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Walter and I had watched so many sunsets together. He'd loved this time of day. "Wait." Vanessa's voice stopped us at the door. I turned, foolishly hopeful. Maybe she'd reconsidered. Maybe there was a shred of decency buried somewhere underneath the designer clothes and the social media persona. She was still filming. "Everyone, before she goes, let's do something nice for this poor woman, okay?" She reached into her designer purse and pulled out a crumpled bill. "Here you go, sweetheart. Get yourself something to eat somewhere more appropriate." She tucked a $5 bill into the front pocket of my flannel shirt, patting it twice for emphasis. For the camera, there we go. Random act of kindness for the day. Don't forget to like and subscribe, everyone. $5. From her designer purse that I had paid for. In the restaurant that my hands had built from nothing. Marcus pushed open the door, and the warm Texas evening air hit my face. He walked me down the front steps and released my arm on the sidewalk. "Sorry about that," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. "I'm just doing my job." "I know." He went back inside. The door closed behind him with a heavy thunk. I stood on Congress Avenue, tourists and professionals streaming past me, completely invisible. An older woman in worn clothes who'd just been thrown out of her own restaurant like trash. My son's words echoed in my head. People like this. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the crumpled $5 bill, stared at it for a long moment. Then I pulled out my phone. Margaret Chen answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Thornton? Is everything all right?" Margaret had been my personal attorney for 22 years. She'd handled the expansion into every new city, negotiated every lease, protected every trademark. She was 60 years old, sharp as a tack, and she was the only person other than me who knew about the character audit I'd been conducting. "Margaret, it's time." A pause. "Are you certain?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I'll have the cars there in 15 minutes. The board is on standby. Make it happen." I ended the call and sat down on a bench across the street from the restaurant. From this angle, I could see through the windows, could see Vanessa still walking around with her phone, could see Derek laughing at something one of the servers said. They had no idea what was coming. The sun continued its descent, and I watched the shadows lengthen across Congress Avenue. A street musician set up on the corner and started playing guitar, something soft and melancholy. A young couple walked past holding hands, laughing at some private joke. I thought about Walter, about the morning he'd proposed to me in the kitchen of our first little diner, flower on his cheeks, a ring he'd saved 3 months to buy. About the night Derek was born, how Walter had cried and promised to be the best father any child ever had. About all the years of hard work, of sacrifice, of believing in something bigger than ourselves. I thought about the look on Derek's face when he'd called me people like this. 12 minutes later, I heard them before I saw them. the low rumble of expensive engines, the hushed purr of vehicles designed to announce importance. 3 black Escalades turned onto Congress Avenue in perfect formation. They moved slowly, deliberately, impossible to ignore. The street musicians stopped playing. Pedestrians paused to stare. Even the traffic seemed to part for them. The first SUV pulled directly in front of Thornton's table. The second stopped behind it. The third angled across the adjacent parking spaces, blocking any exit. Margaret stepped out of the lead vehicle first. She was wearing a charcoal power suit and carrying a leather briefcase that contained documents capable of destroying careers. Behind her came the rest of my legal team. Behind them, 4 members of my board of directors, each one a heavy hitter in the Texas business community. Margaret walked directly to where I sat on the bench and extended her hand. "Mrs. Thornton, we're ready when you are." I took her hand and stood. My legs were steady now. The hollow feeling in my chest had crystallized into something harder, something sharper. I reached up and removed the old flannel shirt, revealing the simple but elegant silk blouse I'd worn underneath. I pulled the elastic from my hair and let it fall around my shoulders, silver waves that I'd stopped dyeing after Walter died. Margaret handed me a blazer from the SUV, and I slipped it on. The transformation took maybe 30 seconds. I walked across Congress Avenue toward the restaurant that bore my name, my legal team and board members falling into formation behind me. We moved as one unit, and the gathering crowd of curious onlookers parted instinctively. Inside the restaurant, I could see faces turning toward the windows, trying to make sense of the convoy that had just arrived. I pushed open the heavy wooden door myself. The crystal chandeliers that Walter had picked out cast rainbow prisms across the hardwood floors as we entered. Every conversation stopped, every server froze, even the ambient music seemed to hush. Vanessa was standing near the bar, her phone finally lowered, her perfect face contorted with confusion. What the hell is going on here? I walked through my restaurant, past the tables where guests sat frozen with forks halfway to their mouths. Past the servers who were slowly recognizing me, their faces cycling through confusion, then shock, then dawning horror. Past the hostess named Brianna, who had gone absolutely white. I stopped in the center of the dining room, directly under the largest chandelier. "Good evening, everyone." My voice was calm and carried clearly. For those who don't know me, my name is Evelyn Thornton. I built this restaurant with my late husband 40 years ago. I own this building. I own this business. I own every single thing you see around you. The silence was absolute. I turned to face Vanessa. She was still holding her phone, though the screen had gone dark. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Behind her, Derek had gone gray. His hands were shaking at his sides. "Mom." His voice cracked on the word. "Mom, I didn't recognize you." "I know." I held his gaze. "That's exactly the problem, isn't it? You didn't recognize me, but more importantly, you didn't recognize basic human decency. Neither of you did." Vanessa found her voice. "This is ridiculous. This was obviously some kind of test, some kind of trap. You set us up. I gave you an opportunity to show me who you really are when you think no one important is watching, and you showed me." I pulled the crumpled $5 bill from my pocket and held it up. "You showed me this." Her face reddened. I was trying to be nice." "You were trying to humiliate someone you thought was beneath you. On camera. For likes and subscribers. You called me a vagrant. You called me homeless. You said I was making your guests uncomfortable just by existing in the same space. I didn't know it was you." "That's the point, Vanessa. It shouldn't matter who I was. Every person who walks through that door deserves basic respect. That's what this restaurant was built on. That's what my husband believed until the day he died." My voice broke slightly on that last part, and I paused to collect myself. From the corner of my eye, I saw the young busboy Vanessa had berated earlier about the flower arrangement. He was watching with wide eyes, and I thought I saw him nod slightly. "Good." He understood. Margaret stepped forward and opened her briefcase. "Mrs. Thornton has asked me to inform you both that effective immediately, your employment with Thornton's Table is terminated." This includes all managerial responsibilities, profit-sharing agreements, and your access to any company accounts or properties. You can't do this! Vanessa's voice rose to a shriek. Derek is your son. This is his inheritance. No. The word came out hard as stone. This company was never his inheritance. It was his opportunity. An opportunity he squandered by becoming someone his father wouldn't recognize. Derek stepped forward, his eyes wet. Mom, please. We can talk about this. We can fix this. Can you fix the way you looked at me? Can you fix the word vagrant that came out of your wife's mouth? Can you fix the 3 servers you fired in the last 2 months for being too friendly with customers who didn't look wealthy enough? He flinched. He hadn't known I knew about that. I've been watching, Derek. For 6 months, I've been watching. The corners you've been cutting, the suppliers you've been cheating, the staff you've been mistreating. I turned to Margaret. Show them. Margaret pulled out a thick folder and began reading financial discrepancies, padding expense reports, marking up vendor invoices, and pocketing the difference. Nothing as dramatic as embezzlement, but a steady stream of small thefts that added up to nearly $50,000 over 8 months. Those were just business decisions, Derek said weakly. Creative accounting. It's fraud. And it's grounds for termination and potential prosecution, though Margaret has advised me that pressing charges against my own son would be… I paused, complicated. Vanessa was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. What are we supposed to do? We have a mortgage. We have car payments. Everything was tied to this job. Then I suggest you find new jobs. Perhaps somewhere that aligns better with your values of judging people by their appearance and their bank accounts. I turned to address the rest of the staff, many of whom had gathered in a loose semicircle around us. For everyone else, nothing changes. Your jobs are secure. Margaret Chen will be serving as interim general manager until I can find a permanent replacement. I found the young busboy in the crowd. What's your name, son? Tyler, ma'am. Tyler Williams. Tyler, how long have you worked here? About 8 months. And in that time, have you ever been treated poorly by management? Think carefully before you answer. There's no wrong answer. He glanced at Vanessa, then back at me. Yes, ma'am. Pretty regularly. Would you be interested in training for a management position? Fair wages, real responsibilities, room to grow? His face lit up. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Good. See Margaret before you leave tonight. I raised my voice to address everyone. If anyone else has experienced mistreatment, my door is open. We're going to rebuild this culture back to what my husband and I intended it to be. Every guest matters. Every employee matters. No exceptions. A ripple of relief moved through the crowd. A few people smiled. One server, a young woman with red hair, was openly crying, though she was smiling through the tears. Security. I found Marcus, the man who had escorted me out earlier. Please help Mr. Thornton and his wife gather their personal belongings and escort them from the property. They're not to return. Marcus looked at me, really looked at me for the first time, and I saw respect in his eyes. Yes, Mrs. Thornton. He moved toward Derek and Vanessa. Derek was crying openly now, reaching toward me. Mom, please. I'm your son. I made mistakes, but I'm your son. I felt my heart crack. I know you are. That's what makes this so hard. But Derek, you didn't just make mistakes. You became someone cruel. Someone who looks at a person in worn clothes and sees trash to be removed. That's not the son I raised. I don't know who that person is. I can change. Give me another chance. This is your chance to figure out who you want to be without my money and my name propping you up. I hope you take it. Marcus took his arm. Vanessa was still screaming about lawyers and lawsuits, but her words washed over me like noise. They were led out the front door. Through the windows, I watched them stand on Congress Avenue, exactly where I had stood an hour earlier. Derek was hunched over, shoulders shaking. Vanessa was on her phone, probably calling someone to complain. I stood in the center of my restaurant and felt the weight of 40 years pressing down on me, the weight of what I'd just done, the weight of cutting my only son out of my life. Mrs. Thornton. Margaret's voice was gentle. Would you like to sit down? Yes. I think I would. Tyler appeared at my elbow with a glass of water and led me to a quiet table in the corner. The same table, I realized, where Walter and I had sat on the night we'd bought this building, where he'd held my hand and said, "Evelyn, this is just the beginning." Tears streamed down my face. I didn't try to stop them. The restaurant slowly returned to normal around me. Servers resumed their stations. Guests went back to their meals, though I could feel their eyes on me, their whispered conversations. Margaret sat across from me, not speaking, just present. I thought it was over. I was wrong. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of rebuilding, of long days at the restaurant, of staff meetings and new hires, and trying to repair the damage that had been done. Margaret found a permanent general manager, a wonderful woman named Patricia, who'd been running restaurants for 30 years and understood the culture I wanted to create. I didn't hear from Derek. I checked my phone constantly, foolishly hoping for a call or a text, something, anything, an apology, a request to talk. Even anger would have been better than silence. But there was nothing. Then, on a Tuesday night, my phone rang at 2 a.m. I fumbled for it in the darkness, my heart immediately racing. Nothing good happens at 2 a.m. "Mrs. Thornton?" An unfamiliar voice. Young, male, nervous. "This is Officer Patterson with the Austin Police Department. There's been an incident at your restaurant on Congress Avenue." I was out of bed before he finished the sentence. "What kind of incident?" "Ma'am, it looks like arson. The building is, well, you should probably come down here." I don't remember the drive. I must have gotten dressed. I must have called Margaret. But the next thing I remember clearly is standing on Congress Avenue at 2:30 the morning, watching flames pour from the windows of the restaurant Walter and I had built our dreams in. Fire trucks lined the street. Hoses sprayed water that seemed to evaporate the moment it touched the inferno. The beautiful Victorian building, the exposed brick, the original hardwood floors, the crystal chandeliers, all of it was burning. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. And then a voice cut through the roar of the flames. "Mom." I turned. Derek was there, running toward me from across the street. His clothes were disheveled, his hair was wild, and in his hand he was clutching a phone. "Mom, I tried to stop him. I swear to God, I tried." "Stop who?" "Derek, what's happening?" "It was Vanessa's brother, Craig. He blamed you for everything. For the divorce, for us losing the house, for all of it. He said he was going to make you pay." Derek was crying, his words tumbling out in a rush. I didn't know he was serious. I didn't know until tonight when I saw the gas cans in his car. I came here as fast as I could, but it was all ready. He broke down, sobbing. Where is he now? The police have him. He didn't even try to run. He was just standing across the street, watching it burn. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at my son. Really looked at him. Past the mistakes and the cruelty and the stranger he'd become, I saw the little boy who used to watch me cook, the teenager who had cried at his father's funeral, the man who had just run toward a burning building to find me. The building could be rebuilt. The chandeliers could be replaced. But in that moment, standing in the orange glow of the flames, I saw something I thought I'd lost forever. I saw my son coming back. "You came to warn me," I said quietly. "I should have done more. I should have called the police sooner. I should have. But you came." The fire roared. The water hissed. Somewhere in the chaos, Margaret appeared at my side, and officers were asking questions, and the night stretched on. But I held on to my son's hand. And I didn't let go. It took 18 months to rebuild. The insurance covered most of it. Craig was convicted of arson and sentenced to 8 years in prison. Vanessa divorced Derek 3 months after the fire and moved to California with a man she'd apparently been seeing for a while. Derek didn't ask for his job back. He got work at a small diner on the east side of town, washing dishes and bussing tables. The same work I'd done when I was starting out. The same work his father had done. He called me every Sunday. At first, the conversations were awkward, stilted. But slowly, week by week, we found our way back to each other. He told me about his co-workers, about the regulars at the diner, about how he'd started to understand what it meant to really work for something. On the day the rebuilt restaurant reopened, Derek stood beside me at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. He wasn't wearing a designer suit. He was wearing the same simple work clothes he wore at his diner job. "I'm proud of you," I told him quietly, as the cameras flashed. "I don't deserve that. Maybe not yet. But you're becoming someone who will." The doors opened. Guests streamed in. The new chandeliers sparkled, almost identical to Walter's originals. The hardwood floors gleamed, and on the wall near the entrance, we'd hung a new sign. A quote from Walter that I'd found in an old notebook after he died. "Every person who walks through this door is someone's mother, father, child, or friend. Treat them accordingly." Derek read it, his eyes wet. "I understand now, Mom. I finally understand." "I know you do, baby. I know you do." We walked into the restaurant together. Not as owner and heir, not as employer and employee, just as mother and son, starting over, one step at a time. And you listening to this story, remember this. Family isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I almost lost my son forever. Not to fire, but to pride, his and mine. Thank God we both found our way back. If you're facing betrayal from someone you love, don't close your heart completely. Set boundaries, yes. Demand accountability, absolutely. But leave room for redemption, because people can change. I've seen it. I've lived it. The son who called me a vagrant became the son who ran toward a burning building to save me. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below sharing your own experiences with family conflict and forgiveness. Have you ever had to choose between holding a grudge and offering grace? I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this journey, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your support means everything and helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Thank you so much for staying with me until the very end. Your time and attention are precious gifts. Before you go, a quick reminder that the stories on this channel may contain fictionalized elements created for educational and inspirational purposes. If this type of content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos that better suit your preferences. We respect your choices and appreciate your understanding. God bless you all. Until next time.